we came into this job, we had to do a self-study, which was supposed to have been underway for the previous 2 years, and nothing much had happened. We had 6 months to complete a self-study. We'd never done one before. So it became important to us to have some expert help. And how do you put one of these things appropriately together? What's the right format? What are the right questions to ask? How do you get the data? How do you review the files? We had a very rapid learning curve.
No one understands the complexities of CME. And in today's environment, it is extremely difficult to do this without someone such as Passin Associates, because of the lack of your own staffing to be able to achieve those goals.
When I decided to take on this job, I went to the ACCME website and read it, which, if you've ever done that, it's very soporific. It left me with almost more questions than answers. And I think the role of the consultant was to help us understand what the ACCME was all about. Since the consultant had really been through this repetitively, knew what the ACCME was looking for, knew what worked, what didn't work, it became important for us to really rely upon that experience as we developed our self-study and began to reform this department.
The documentation is incredible today, and they kind of help you get it packaged. You've got the documentation, but you kind of don't know how to pull it all together, and that's the expertise, again, that Passin Associates has.
We chose Passin Associates as a partner in our beginning CME program. He came highly recommended as an expert in the field of accreditation, and he provided a tremendous amount of assistance in our first accreditation. Our first accreditation actually was an accreditation with commendation.
I felt very insecure. In fact, before we came to Passin Associates, we were actually trying to work on the application for ACCME ourselves, and I was very insecure. But I think working with Passin Associates, particularly Steve and Sue O'Brien, gave us a lot more confidence that we were doing the correct thing. We just may not have been calling it the right thing, but we were doing it, and we were doing it quite well and competently. But working with Passin and Associates made me feel like I knew what I was doing, and they helped me, as I said earlier, put a name on it.
I think they were very helpful in guiding us, and I think that one of the things that I learned the most is that doing this self-study identified so many gaps in practice for us, and so we could figure out quite easily where there were gaps, where there were things that were not being adhered to or followed. There was miscommunication. Their documentation was very, very challenging, and so there was great guidance to be able to take those gaps and be able to turn them around and address those issues in a very positive way, so that it wasn't difficult for us to be CME compliant. I think the other issue that we had was that we had a team that had a peripheral knowledge of CME. And so we had a pretty daunting task of educating every member on our team the basics of CME and then taking us to that next step. And I think the consultants were fabulous. Denise was wonderful. Steve, you've been terrific. But just to enable the learning curve for our whole team to be as rapid as it possibly could, so that we could start growing the department again.
You came in with your crew and were very organized and had us go from step one to the end, and here we are as providers of ACCME.
Working with Passin Associates has named things for me and helped me define what I'm doing, even though we might have been doing it correctly, but now being able to sort of put it into the appropriate boxes, but also to be able to think more creatively.
Yeah, as we prepared the files for our self-study, that was a huge challenge, and I think, I don't know what Mickey has to say about it, but I think without Denise in particular helping us to restructure, the data was all here. It was scattered around, you had to go after it and dig it out and find it, but she knew what had to go into the files,
right, and
helped us to restructure them so that they were, turned out to be positively reviewed by the ACCME as part of our self-study process.
Steve and his staff were accessible to us, guided us through the entire process. The one thing about Steve and the staff that I liked was that we were not told to do homework. They actually had forms and provided on-site assistance to us during that process. As a matter of fact, we just went through another one in 2009 and received our second accreditation with commendation with a lot of help from Passin Associates.
It also gives us an opportunity to really work on our processes and procedures and to be successful on a long-range basis and not be worried about doing the self-study again in just a short amount of time.